So we are back in Godot, making a top-down pixel art game. Here's some of the stuff I've been working on in the last few weeks. I like the font that was in my game because it was pixelated like the artwork. However, it was not my own, it was taken from a Brackish tutorial. I also wanted something a bit more rugged and handmade. So I attempted to make a font. I drew up the designs for each letter in a pixel editing software and exported a PNG, but then to make a font, apparently you needed to convert this to a vectorized format. I heard Inkscape was a free, semi-easy way to achieve this. Alternatively, it can be done in Adobe Illustrator. And yes, it was pretty alright to get going with, and combined with Font Forge, I can convert this SVG setup to an actual font. That workflow I can confirm is very good, but sadly I made a high-ranking goofy mistake. I'd used grid snapping in Inkscape to get the pixelated look for the glyphs/characters, but they were not properly rounded to integers in terms of their positioning and spacing between characters. As it turns out, this is super important for pixel fonts. When I brought the font into Godot at a proper tiny scale, the integer sampling made the text look kind of cool but funky and inconsistent. I could have made the fixes in Inkscape, but this probably would have taken a lot of precious time. Instead, I found a lifesaver web tool through a tutorial by Mort, specifically for pixel fonts. This meant I could actually convert my original PNG of the letter designs directly into a font with appropriate positioning without going through the vectorizing process. Since then, I've been slapping this font not just on the game, but everywhere in the videos, on the channel banner, everything. I had the dialogue up and running in the last video, but only had the function to just cue and throw text onto it. This game's going to be quite dialogue heavy, so I needed to design the dialogue system in a way that I could scale it up as quickly as possible. Writing the dialogue in my actual Godot scripts was not going to fly. My new system is to write into a Google Sheet instead with these little text IDs for Godot to find the right bit of text to print. Once that Google Sheet is done, I can export it as a JSON with a Google Sheet extension. This is also going to help a lot when it comes to translating the game later on into other languages. I found out as well about something that Godot has called resources. They seem to be a bit like nodes, but they exist outside the node hierarchy. You can define a custom one by extending resource and exposing a bunch of different attributes that you can add later. I made one called dialogue entry, which is going to represent a series of messages that can play on the text blocks once some criteria has been met. Like, did the player complete this quest or pick up that item? I made another one called action, which is going to be a function call I can attach to a dialogue entry once it's triggered or after the text has showed up. Like, give the player some coins. When you want to make a new resource, you can just click here and then pick the custom definition you made. Then fill out those variables that you defined earlier. So my creepy lonely enemy dude from the last video needed a little bit of love. He was just standing about in the dark. I need to make him move or do something. I put some collider obstacles in the room and made him shoot something called a raycast at the player when the player is in the same room as him. Basically, if the first object that the raycast hits is the player, then we can begin chasing them. However, as soon as the enemy would lose sight of the player, he would stop, which is not super realistic. If you see someone walking behind a tree, then you have an inkling that they might be behind it. I put a timer to continue the chase for a bit longer after losing sight, which worked pretty well. And for the actual movement, we're using something called navigation agents, which is a special gift from Godot and makes calculating the path between the enemy and the player super easy. It basically does this calculation for you. You just have to make a navigation region, which is a zone that the navigation path can exist in. You have to be a bit careful as your physics colliders might stop the enemy from moving, so it's best to put some extra padding around the obstacles. There's also some dodginess when the navigation polygons get too stretched. I found that the path was not very accurate. But that's a problem for another day. Bye!